All right, it's a busy week in New York sports. We just saw that as the calendar turns to July. Unbelievably, we are in July. So let's talk about the hottest topics in New York sports with our fantastic guest this week. He is the host of the New York podcast with The Ringer. You also see him on SNY. He's in this studio sometimes. That is John Jastremski, known to many people as JJ. How you doing, JJ?
Dex, I'm doing all right, man. Excited that the calendar is turning to the month of July, and I think the only group of people that might be more excited than me would be the New York Mets, considering how their month of June went.
Yeah, their month of June was absolutely terrible. We're going to get into that. This episode, we're going to talk about a perfect game for a Yankee pitcher, Knicks free agency goals, but you just heard it from JJ. Leading off, we got to talk about the slump in New York Mets. JJ, you were right. The Mets, they got to be happy that June is over. They went 7-19 in the month. However, this week, we heard from owner Steve Cohen, who addressed the issues surrounding his ball club. The Mets, they still continue to lose since he spoke. So what did you make of Cohen's comments to the media this week about his team?
I think Steve Cohen is showing you that he's a pragmatic guy. He's showing you that unlike the business reputation where people, maybe assumed he was a gunslinger and that he was going to act on impulse, he's not doing that when it comes to this Mets season, when it comes to mid-season firings and whatnot. But there's no getting around this, Dex. This is as monumental a flop of a first half as you're going to see. I mean, this is a team that won 100 games a year ago. This is a team that had legitimate World Series aspirations going into the season. And for them to be double-digit games under the 500 mark is insanity. It is mind-blowing. I can't believe we're talking about the Mets as a team that's 10 games under 500 and a team that more than likely is going to be in the sellers department within the next few weeks. And that's something Steve Cohen hit on as well, that if they don't play better baseball between now and the trade deadline, you will be talking about the Mets selling off pieces from that team. Who is that going to be? I don't think it's necessarily guys who are going to be here long-term, but those guys who are on those shorter-term deals, think Tommy Pham, think David Robertson, and yeah, even think Scherzer and Verlander, if they agree to it, these are guys that could be on the move.
I think the thing that's shocking for me, JJ, is you saw Cohen speak, and I think if you're a Mets fan, you had to like what he said there, but you thought that might spark the team. They might play a little bit better after that. No, we haven't seen that. Now, you mentioned it. They're 10 games below 500, on pace for a win total in the low 70s. So I got to ask you this. What is this Mets baseball team right now? And in your eyes, is there any hope of the playoffs for the Metropolitans, or are we bugging when we're talking about playoffs right now?
They got a long way to go before we're talking playoffs. I'm not going to give you the Jim Mora high-pitched playoff speech. I'm not going to go down that road. But the Mets would have to go and rattle off like 8 out of 10 games, 9 out of 12 games, go on that sort of extended run, kind of like they did out of the All-Star break, what was it, in 2019, for me to even fantasize about the idea of them getting back into this thing. But what they are, Dex, they're a bad baseball team. There's no getting around it. They hit, they don't pitch. They pitch, they don't hit. I feel like I've said it on the pod. I've said it on SOY until I'm blue in the face. They have invented ways to lose baseball games, and they did that again on Friday night. They had a lead. They go to David Robertson, who's been so good for them, and, of course, he yucks it up in the top half of the 8th inning. That's just kind of been rinse repeat for the Mets. You find me a different script, I'll find you a new way to lose.
Last thing for me on the Mets here, JJ, I'm going to put, I don't want to say gun to your head, but I'm going to put your feet to the fire on this one. Do you have any hope that the Mets can turn this around? Do you think they turn this around at all? Do you see that 8 out of 10, 9 out of 12 stretch coming? Because I think right now, for a lot of fans, they don't see the hope at all. What do you see?
I mean, I wouldn't be putting my money on them to go to make the playoffs. If that's what you're going to ask me, Dex. No, I'd pass on that. Everybody kind of goes on a run. You would figure at some point, whenever that might be, guys start performing to the back of their baseball cards. But the problem is they have a couple of weeks. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at changes to this team, and changes that are not necessarily going to make the Mets better in the short term or better in 2023. So I don't know how they go on that run if they trade their closer, let's say, or they go and trade Scherzer or Verlander, whatever the case may be. These are the difficult conversations that you're going to have. I need to see the Mets, though, Go win 4 or 5 in a row before I'm even fantasizing about the idea of them turning their season around. Right now, they need to get a good week. How about that? Go and play a good week of baseball and then come talk to me.
I hear you on that. Let's take it a day at a time, a game at a time, a week at a time. Then let's see. They just had a bad month. We're hoping to see if they can have a good couple of days in a row. That's what people like to see from the Mets. All right, we're going to move on to the other team wearing blue and orange in New York, at least one of them, not the Islanders. We're going to talk about the Knicks. Quiet day one of free agency for the Knickerbockers. However, they are presumed to be the favorites to land Dante DiVincenzo. So I got to ask you this, JJ. Is he the Knick free agent fit that the team needs? Do you think this is a guy they need to bring in?
I think he's a winning player. They're not going to be able to go and make the big splash in free agency because the player doesn't necessarily fit, like Damian Lillard, for example. Doesn't really fit with what the Knicks are looking for when you think about Jalen Brunson and what he provides and what you'd have to give up in return. Like, I love Damian Lillard as a player. Doesn't fit the New York Knicks. DiVincenzo is exactly the sort of role player that they need. He's a two-way player. He hits the outside shot. He clearly has chemistry with Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. Villanova guy. It's like the Knicks are trying to recreate Villanova University, and they're trying to recreate Kentucky because basically everybody on the roster these days, Dex, is either coming from Nova or is coming from Kentucky. So there's that. And I like the fact that DiVincenzo has played on a bunch of winning teams. He spent time with Giannis in Milwaukee. He spent time with Steph Curry in the Golden State Warriors. So I think his college experience and his pro experience and two-way role type of player has chemistry with some of the guys on his team. I love the fit. I really do.
Okay, but you know some Knicks fans, and I talked about this last week with JR Sport Brief, you know they want a star. James Harden is on the block. Rumors came out on Thursday that the Knicks could be interested in trading for the Sixers guard. Should the Knicks bring the beard to MSG? Why or why not?
No, and I'll say it one more time. No. James Harden's best days are behind him. Did you see James Harden eat himself out of Houston? Did you see James Harden quit on the Brooklyn Nets? Philadelphia basically gives him everything he could want. He's got Daryl Morey. He's playing with Joel Embiid, and now he's not happy there. What good does James Harden to the New York Knickerbockers do pairing him with a guy who needs the ball in his hands in Jalen Brunson? If you want to tell me, oh, Jalen Brunson played well with Luka Doncic, that may be true. James Harden is not a winning player. James Harden wasn't a winning player when he won an MVP in Houston. Now you tell me I want the back end of James Harden's career? No, thank you. Hard pass. And I don't know why the Knicks have been tied in to this potential rumor. I don't see it. I think it's a whole lot of smoke. I think it's a whole lot of hot air. So, no, I don't see any way James Harden ends up with the Knicks, nor should they be interested in bringing him in.
All right, big no from JJ on that one. Okay, last topic. We got to talk about the Yankees. JJ, I know you are a Yankees fan. They had a nice moment the other night. Domingo German pitched a perfect game. And I got to ask this. Considering how we don't see pitchers throw complete games as often nowadays, how special for you was this perfect game, and what did it mean to you as a Yankee fan?
Look, a perfect game is special. That's rarefied air. 24 guys now have done it in the history of Major League Baseball. Domingo German, this is an improbable perfect game. You think about his last two starts, he's stinking up the joint against Boston and Seattle. And I understand the Oakland A's are not a great hitting team, and they're not a great team, period. But to go 27 up, 27 down, to really not have a moment in which you sweat. I mean, I think he had 1 or 2 3-ball counts. There wasn't like that dramatic play in the field that kind of sealed the deal and saved it for him. It was an incredible pitching performance. And now it's pretty wild that you'll talk about Donald Larson, David Wells, David Cohen, and yes, Domingo German.
Yes, he is in that club. Now, JJ, I'm going to bring you onto the hater side of things because I'm sure you saw this on Twitter. Some people are going to say, it wasn't that impressive because German threw the perfect game against the worst team in baseball. Does the opponent matter when it comes to judging the feat of a perfect game, or should we look at this as this is really hard to do? It's really hard to throw a perfect game, and no matter who you throw it against, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, your second point is the one I agree with. I mean, it's 27 up, 27 down. The Oakland A's have played how many games so far this year, Dex? Over 81, give or take. I don't think they're getting perfect gamed every other week. You know what I mean? Like, there are 24 perfect games in Major League Baseball. You have one of them, I don't care who the opponent may be. It's special. And listen, David Cohen, bad Montreal Expo team. I know you look at that team and you see, wow, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., or not Vlad Jr., his dad, Vlad Sr., when he was with Montreal, and you see Orlando Cabrera. So there were some brand names in the lineup, but that was a bad Expo team. When Wells threw it against the Twins, outside of Paul Molitor, that was a bad Minnesota Twins team. Perfect game's perfect game, dude.
Yeah, I'm with you. Perfect game is a perfect game. You can't hate on it. It is an incredible, incredible feat. JJ, appreciate you coming on, joining me on episode 2 of the New York Sports Rapid Rundown. Catch JJ hosting the New York podcast on The Ringer. You also see him on SNY, always doing his thing. JJ, appreciate you, man. Thank you.
See you, Dex.
Yep.